Ball, and today we are talking about Dink Responsibly. Okay, what does that mean? All right, so we're giving lessons and clinics this week, and it's one of the big things that is popping up. We're taking a lot of, so we've been running drill sessions weekly for both the 2.0 to 3.5 group, and then from the 4.0 plus group, we've been running weekly drills 2 times a week. And a lot of times there's things that come up in the last couple of weeks that I have decided like this is what we should shoot a video on because I'm getting a lot of questions in it in the drill session. So today we're covering another one of those, and that is the dinking. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's move these players up real quick here. So we got this team here, this team here. This is your net, this is your non-volley zone. So let's cover dink real quick. So a dink shot is really just a shot that's normally hit when a player is up at the non-volley zone. They're hitting it into their opponent's, so they're up at the non-volley zone line, not on the line on their side, but they're dropping the ball into the non-volley zone of their opponent's side. They're forcing their opponents to bounce the ball before the opponent can then make contact and hit it back over, right? So it's just a short, the way I like to describe it, it's just a short drop shot. We're trying to get it over the net and trying to drop it in the no volley zone, okay? Now, I personally enjoy the dink game or the short game, right? I think there's an art to it. I think once you start studying it, you start understanding it, you're starting to get different, strategies in there, all of a sudden it becomes exciting, what it does to me, okay? So, but for today, we're going to keep it basic because I do work with a lot of beginners and intermediate players, and want to just cover some things that'll help you immediately in your game to start seeing results, okay? Let's talk about that. So, one of the very first things we need to do is we'll just start with the warm-up, okay? This happens all the time. So we get this player and they get their partner on the other side and they start warming up. What do? They just hit it back and forth, right? Back and forth. And there's not a whole lot of movement going on. There's not a whole lot of, anything exciting. It's just hit, back and forth. They might do it for 5 minutes. They might do it for 2 minutes. And then it's like, hey, let's get the game going. Well, here's one of the things that is happening that I've noticed in the years that I've been coaching, that when this player is dinking the ball back, they're actually dinking the ball to this player. Okay? Now, you sit and think to yourself, well, that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to dink the ball to that player. I would argue that this is actually setting you up for problems down the road. So let me give you an example. This is an extreme example, but let me just give you this example, okay? So I would suggest that you're actually, by dinking the ball to this player, you're actually teaching yourself to hit it to a player across the net. Okay, so say your partner here hits this amazing dink here that pulls this player out. Soon as they do that, they hit this dink, okay? This dink shot here pulls this player out. This player slides over. This player slides over to cover. You move over to cover. And this player slides back because they know they got to cover the whole court. They're trying to give themselves the best opportunity to cover. What does this player normally do? This player then normally takes and hits that ball hard back through the middle. Right to you. And it's so interesting to watch this happen. 90+% of the time, this player, you, will hit the ball right to this player right here. You have this whole you have this whole court open and you hit it to the only player on the court. Why? Because in warm-up, by just hitting the ball back and forth to that player, you're teaching yourself to hit it to a player, okay? That is my suggestion. That is what based on what I have seen happen all these years I've been teaching, and this is my theory, right? Because I see this so much. Now, we're not talking 4.0 skill level and above. This doesn't happen as much, but up until that point, up until I would say 3.5, I see this a lot, okay? So what can we do? So that's the first thing that we want to stop doing. All right, let's move our players back. Okay, here we go. Bam, bam. All right, so we need to stop hitting dinks just to hit. That goes along with what I'm talking about. But first of all, let's warm up partners. So we'll go, okay, let's hit to a spot on the court, okay? This also is my point number 2. Stop hitting dinks just to hit dinks, right? Don't just hit it back and forth. So initially, both of you are not warm. So starting to hit it all crazy and everything, you're not trying to win the warm-up contest. We're trying to warm up. But I would suggest hit to spots on the court. Okay, what I mean is when you dink, aim for different spots on the court in front of your player. Aim for those parts of the court and try working on dropping the ball into one of those spots. And it's still going to bounce in the general direction of your partner, okay? And it'll start working on you hitting a short ball, hitting a medium ball, and hitting a longer ball. But it's all the bounce of the ball is all traveling towards your partner, not to your partner, towards your partner. Your partner's not having to move very much right now because they're still warming up, but it's starting to teach you to change your mindset from hitting the ball to a player to hit a ball to a spot on the court, okay? This is really huge right here, okay? So two things we're gonna stop doing is we're gonna stop warming up by hitting the ball directly to our player, wherever they are, just hitting the ball to them. Number 2, we're gonna stop hitting dinks just to hit dinks, okay? All right, so what we're gonna start doing is we're gonna hitting dinks to move the partner. So now that we have been hitting these spots on the court, once we've been doing this for a couple minutes, now it's time to start warming the legs up. Now we're gonna start moving our partner around, okay? Now you're gonna start hitting different spots on the court. Now you're gonna be hitting them still slow enough and still controlled enough that your partner can get them, because this is still warm up. We're still warming up. Again, we're still not trying to win the warm up contest. We're just trying to make sure that we have these shots. This is a great way to also start experimenting with what shots are working and what shots aren't working. So say your backhand, you try to hit over here and you keep missing it. Guess what? That lets you know that that's a shot you probably should work on. So every time you get into warm up, you can also use it as somewhat of a drill session and start working on hitting that shot. And there are times where I will be here, my partner here, and their foot will be my target. So I will go to their foot. No matter what they hit me, I will go after that foot. And then once I hit that, I will go after the other foot. What does this do? It keeps them hitting their forehand continuously. And then once I change feet, I intentionally am forcing them to hit their backhand. So they're actually warming up their forehand, they're warming up their backhand, but it's also helping me because I'm aiming for certain parts of the court that I'm gonna hit this spot 5 times, hit the spot 7 times, okay? That's a great way to start getting a more intentional warm up, okay? All right, we're gonna start hitting dinks to move our partner. That's what we just talked about. We're gonna start working on placement. I just talked about that as well. Start working on placement, start working on the forehand, the backhand, start working on a deeper dink, start working on a mid dink, start working on a short dink, working on, I think probably the one that's most underutilized is the dink that's closer to the net. you're forcing this player to have to move forward, but it's also forcing to see if you can actually hit a dink that's neutral. I'm surprised by how many players, when it's time to hit a neutral dink, can't hit one. Okay, so the dink, just to dink, has to go out the door. Just getting the ball over, just to get the ball over, has to go out the door. Like, it's time to change our mindset. Time to start thinking about, I need to be intentional with my dinks. Okay, here we go. So know the 3 zones in the non-volley zone. Okay, so let's talk about this. So I would say this is zone 1, and this is zone 2. Okay, so this is number 1, which would be the neutral. There's a T in there somewhere. The neutral zone. So this right here is the neutral zone. Why is that neutral? Because we're close to the net. So this player dropping it close to the net cuts down on the ability for the player to tack straight ahead. This player is now limited to either having to hit a hard angle this way, a hard angle this way, or try to hit some crazy overhead lob of some sort, right? Or even just hitting a little easy dink across. And of course, you should be ready to go get that ball. That's only 7 feet, probably 3 steps at most to go get that ball. Most people can't hit a great dink over, so they overhit it a little bit anyway. So that's to your advantage. So this is neutral. So anytime you get backed up, anytime you get moved over, this is a great place to put the ball to work your team back into place, right? So that's the neutral zone. Okay, this is what I like to call the trouble zone. Okay, this is number 2. This whole area here is the trouble zone. It is in the middle of the court. It is of the no volley zone. This is where when you hit the ball in there, a lot of times it bounces and does nothing, or it bounces high, and all it takes is it travels and your player can line it up and attack. Okay, that is the trouble zone. Like, there's so many players who hit the ball in this area and then they wonder why they get attacked. They wonder why players are hitting an aggressive dink back for winners, or hitting a dinks back that are setting them up to hit back a winner, right? It's because we're hitting what we call dead dinks. We're hitting neutral dinks into this zone, and we're not able to defend the next ball that's coming back, right? So one of the things you can do to help with the neutral is just to, you're going to have great counters, you're going to have great resets, but just know that if you have aggressive players over here and you keep the ball in this zone, you're just asking for trouble, okay? So you have the neutral zone, which is closer to, I would say, probably the first 2 feet, maybe 2.5 feet, and then we're talking all the way back to almost the baseline. You got maybe a foot off the baseline. No, maybe not even that far. Maybe 6 inches. The baseline is where you have your third zone, which is this zone here. I would call this the aggressive or the pressure zone number 3. Okay, that right there. This is where when we hit these aggressive dinks, we hit these dinks that are harder and deeper. They are going, and I would even say this probably extends out some past this here too, okay? Probably extends out past that a little bit, because we want to get like even behind the feet would be considered part of this zone too, okay? So that would be the aggressive zone, right? I do see a lot of players who hit the ball. This is the only place they dink the ball, is in that zone. And I like to describe it this way, okay? When you're hitting the ball repeatedly into this area, that means it has to be higher or deeper or harder. You're basically attacking. That's what you're doing. You're hitting an attacking shot. And it's not really a put away shot. It's an attacking shot. If you get a winner out of it, great. But a lot of times that's all the player skips zone 1 and zone 2, and their dinks immediately go deep every time, deep and hard. The better, the more skilled player there is on the other side, the more dangerous that is. So even though it can be an aggressive or even a great for a pressure, to add pressure to your team, the other team, you also have to be careful. There's got to be a setup to that. You can't just keep going after that, okay? All right, so those are the 3 zones. You got the neutral zone, which is close. You got the trouble zone, which is in the middle. And you got the aggressive and the pressure zone, which is deeper, right? So let's talk about dinking responsibly. All right, we're finally to it. So know the 3 spots. Here are the 3 spots that I would suggest that you put the ball when you're dinking. These are the 3 spots that I would say you need to put the ball. There's 1, 2, and 3. What do you notice? It's not to a player. It's to the outside or in the middle or the outside of these players. Now, if this moves over, obviously these spots move over. Now this 3 becomes really big, but you still have this, but I'm probably going to spend more time in 3, right? But this is the 3 spots that I would dink, okay, if I'm being aggressive, okay? If I'm being neutral, then I'm probably hitting 1 here, here, and then of course the middle. So why is this one a little further in? When I play, this is safe 1, safe 2, and safe 3. Why here? Because I want to avoid an Ernie. Maybe some of you know that is. That's where this player can jump the line here and hit a ball just crossing the net. If you put that ball inside a little more, if they jump, they can't get to the ball. And if you keep it close to the net, it makes it harder for them to be able to get to that ball, okay? But these are the safe spots. Again, just inside. This one, probably a little too far. Here we go. This one's probably a little too far. And we're avoiding the Ernie here, right? Safe spot, and then always in the middle is pretty, again, in the neutral zone, keeping it close to the net. But then when I'm being aggressive, these are my spots that I'm going after, okay? So you know your safe places, you know your 3 places that you're gonna go with your aggressive dinks, and then know where the pressure is applied. These are where you're gonna start applying pressure to your opponents. Now, when we're doing this, I will like to hit a shot at their forehand, and then I will hit a shot at their backhand. Inevitably, one of those is going to be weaker, not as efficient. Guess where I'm going to start focusing my aggressive shots? Now I'm going to set it up, and this is huge, guys. You got to set it up. You can't just keep going every shot at that spot. You have to move the player and set that shot up. That's key. A lot of players are still trying to figure that out. Like, we're still trying to hit 1-shot winners, and we just have to get away from that mentality and start thinking of this as strategy. Strategy requires multiple moves, right, to get to the result we're looking for. And in this case, I'm going to hit 1-1, which is probably to this guy's forehand, knowing his backhand. And I may even move 1 over a little bit to move him. And then I'm going to go after number 3, which is his backhand. So not only am I going after his backhand, I'm forcing him to move while trying to hit his weaker side, his backhand, which is going to only add more value to the shot that I'm going to get to put away. Okay, it's going to be a better put away shot for me, or a shot I can do even more with. Okay, but the idea is to put pressure on your opponents and force them to give you something that you can put away. So there is an art to the dink, but you've got to learn to dink responsibly first, okay? So that is, well, that's pretty much it. There's a lot I covered in all of that, but I just wanted to point that out, that this is what we talk about in our drilling sessions. Now we drill it, like I do very little talking, but I drill it. We may take a minute or two and I'll just break it down, but why we're doing this, and then once they understand it, then it makes it even more, more focused and more intentional in their drilling, in hitting their shots. And then you can see them go from like maybe 75% focus to 100% focus once they understand why we're doing this. And then when we get into the game, you can see them all trying to work this out, trying to figure out how their style is going to look when they step on the court, right? So when we're in the drilling session, we're in these things like everybody's game's going to look different. And I want you to use this as like a science lab. I want you to try things. I want you to see what you're doing well now, see what you need to work on, and then make it yours, okay? That's what makes it unique. That's what makes it your game. And in your style, when you mix it with the right style, another style that works with yours is going to be amazing on the court, okay? So again, Thomas Yellow Eyes with Night Train Pickleball. Thank you for joining us for Whiteboard Wednesday as we talked about dinking responsibly. We'll see you in the next Whiteboard Wednesday.